Hi, welcome to the first lecture for the heart. This is going to help prepare you for the NPTE sections regarding the cardiovascular system. Now, for this first lecture, it's an introduction. It's more of a conversation on what the heart is. We're not going to go into a lot of details, but I want to start the conversation here with this topic and really discuss what the heart is in very simple terms. So as you guys know, I like to simplify the process. So on this first lecture, we're going to simplify what the heart is and talk about its function. This is going to help us down the road because this forms the foundation for everything we're going to speak about going forward. So it's very important that we're all on the same page because I will reference these terminologies and just this process and way of thinking about the heart. The first question we should ask is, how does the heart contract? This is a very simple question, and depending on how you answer this question, just shows how you're thinking about the heart. You all have gone through your anatomy and physiology, so hopefully your answer should have some element of those topics you've learned. To the layman, how does the heart contract? It just contracts and it pushes out blood. Simple, right? But as we'll discuss, there's actually a process which is called the physiology, how the heart actually works. And what we see is that the heart just doesn't contract. The first step is that we need these pacemaker cells to first send the signal, and then it just doesn't go into nowhere. These pacemaker cells then go to these other cells, the myocardial cells. And these are special cells of the heart. And as you can see by the name myocardial, myo means muscle and cardio means heart. And the heart is made up primarily of these two types of cells. And this is how the heart actually contracts. First, we get the pacemaker cells that then send that signal, and it goes to the myocardial cells, which then cause the contraction. Very important that we think about how the heart contracts and how it conducts its usual function in this way. Because it's very important because once we start talking about what goes wrong with the heart just doesn't contract on its own. We know that there's some precursor that leads to contraction. And why does the heart contract? This is another question that seems very basic on the surface, but once again, depending on how you answer this, shows me your understanding of the function of the heart. And really, what this question is asking is, what is the purpose of the heart? And the heart, I like the heart because it's probably the simplest, one of the simplest organs in the body. There's not a lot of complications to it, and the answer is as simple as you're thinking. It is simply to deliver blood. That's all it does. It pumps blood. But let's dive into that a little bit more. What does it actually mean to pump blood? Well, we need that blood because it carries oxygen. So this is also another important foundational truth that we need to be on the same page with. The only reason we need oxygen, right, is because that's what our body uses as energy. And the way our body has evolved to carry and deliver oxygen is through the blood. And the heart just happens to be the structure that pumps that blood. So this is all the heart is good for. That's all it's good for, to pump blood to the rest of the body. And that blood contains oxygen. So delivery of oxygen to the body and also the return of carbon dioxide from the body. So how does the heart accomplish this? Well, first we need to then ask the question, why do we even need oxygen? And where is this carbon dioxide coming from? Where's the oxygen even coming from? And asking these questions, I already started going over the oxygen. Well, we need oxygen for the rest of our body because that is how we create energy. And where does this oxygen come from? Well, it comes from the lungs. So the heart does not produce oxygen, but it plays a very important role in the management of oxygen throughout the body. And then that carbon dioxide, as we mentioned, comes from the rest of the body. And we get this picture here. And this picture shows us this flow. The heart is central to driving blood. And on the right side, the heart's going to pump out blood that has oxygen. And this is important because that's what the rest of our body needs. And then we're going to have on the other side this carbon dioxide that's coming back from the blood. And that goes back into the heart. And the heart then pumps that into the lungs that helps us remove carbon dioxide. So this is very important because this is essentially all there is to the heart, right? It simply just plays a role in delivering oxygen and bringing carbon dioxide out. And when we look at this, it accomplishes this through these highways. And here we have this picture of blood leaving the heart with oxygen. And as mentioned, we have these organs and all these other structures in our body that need oxygen. So the oxygen is going to get to these different target tissues through the blood, and it goes through arteries. We can just stick with that right now. Arteries are what deliver blood away from the heart. The arteries will take blood from the heart and then deliver it to the rest of the body. As we can see here, there's some other terms, arterioles and capillaries. And I want you to just think about the arteries as the highway. And once you get off the highway, you go into the main roads. So those are the arterioles. And let's say you're driving back home while your neighborhood and those small routes you're going to take to get to your house, well, those are your capillaries. But essentially, all of those form the network that's going to then drive blood to the target tissue or the organ. And once the body has used the oxygen, some of the byproducts are going to be carried off by the blood. And one of the major byproducts is going to be carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide is coming from the body. We said the oxygen is coming from where? It's coming from the lungs. And the lungs take oxygen out of the air, put it in the blood, and deliver it. Now we're seeing carbon dioxide coming as a byproduct from the body. That carbon dioxide is then carried off once again through this network, this road, this highway, if you want to think of it that way, this road that's going to take that blood back to the heart. And similar, we're going to go through the veins. That's the big one. But if we look more specifically, if you're leaving your house, you're going to go through the small streets before you go to the main streets and then go to the highway. Same idea here. The blood leaves the tissue, goes into the capillaries, then to the venules, and then to the veins. And it makes its final destination to the heart where it goes off to the lungs. We know how the heart delivers blood, how it contracts, right? It just doesn't contract. We have pacemaker cells, and then we have these other myocardial cells. And we have, through the stimulation of those, contraction. And once it contracts, it needs to deliver blood because blood contains oxygen, and our body needs oxygen, all of these tissues. So that is the purpose of the heart. And it does this, the connection between the heart and then to all these tissues, these arrows, that is our vascular system. So that closes the loop right there, the cardiovascular system. The cardiac system, the heart, is going to pump the blood and it's going to be delivered through the vascular network. And we can see the vascular system is composed of the arteries, as we mentioned, and also the veins. So very important to not forget, these are also part of the cardiovascular system. If there's any issue with the heart or the vascular system, it's going to play together. They are working together. So we can't separate these. And this is just a summary. This is all the heart does. It just delivers oxygen to the tissues and it pumps that oxygen through the contraction of the heart and through the blood. And then that blood is also going to carry back carbon dioxide to the heart where it's then taken out of the system. Very important, and I know this is a very basic element of the cardiovascular system, but it's very important that we think about the cardiovascular system in this way. We need to think about the cardiac system and the vascular system and think of how they play a role together. We don't need to start going into too much detail yet if we don't fully grasp this understanding here. So this is the relationship of the cardiovascular system. As I mentioned, it's going to form the foundation for what we talk about later on, because then it makes sense why, when the heart is failing, why you see some of the symptoms that you see, because we said the function of the heart, the only reason, the purpose of the heart is to deliver oxygen because the body needs oxygen. So when we start talking about issues with the heart delivering oxygen, we start seeing some of these classic signs and symptoms, and we also can understand the disease process a lot better. So that is the cardiovascular system. Next, we're going to then discuss and we're going to hone in on the cardiac system more and talk about the heart. So this is where it gets more technical because there's going to be technical terms that we need to understand on how the heart actually accomplishes this movement of blood, right? But the foundation stays the same. The heart's just moving blood. But now we're just given specific terminology and explaining specific mechanisms through which the heart's going to pump and deliver that blood.